Welcome to Stop the Fight. And today, we're discussing the results of yesterday's unification between Josh Taylor and Jose Carlos Ramirez. Let's go!
Don't brag about taking my side piece! Don't brag about taking my side piece, no!
I broke my back. Back is broken. Spinal.
He's strong, man. Good boy, just...
We're in the money. We're in the money. If you guys did as I did, you made some money on yesterday's fight. It went about as well as we could expect it to go, and this is approximately how we thought it would go. The first half of the fight, as I said, was close. It was very close. Jose Carlos Ramirez took many rounds off Josh Taylor in the beginning. Hell, I was getting worried. But I remember I was thinking, I'm like, look, at the end of the day, Josh Taylor is the faster, the more accurate, and the better boxer. It showed at many points, even in early in the fight. In the first round, right off the bat, you see that Josh Taylor is the better athlete, the one who fights more sideways. Like he's not as linear, as straight up as Ramirez. Ramirez would sometimes, stand straight up, shoulder to shoulder, rather than have that 90-degree turn, which Taylor had. And from a southpaw position, he was able to land the jab early on. Now, things started to get dicey in the second, third, and fourth rounds. I think after 4, I had it, I want to say 3-1 in favor of Jose Carlos Ramirez. And I was getting a little bit worried because I didn't see from Taylor what I wanted to see in that very, very opening, first few rounds outside the first. In that second, third, and fourth, I was worried that he was just letting himself get to the ropes too often, not moving, sometimes just waiting too much. And you knew that, well, I knew that he's not that kind of fighter. He needs to stay moving. He needs to keep that jab going, and he needs to throw accurate short shots. So he starts slightly turning it around in the fifth, and I think I gave him the fifth. So I think I gave him the first and the fifth. Then, of course, the fight in the 6th and 7th turns in favor of Taylor. And this is what I thought would happen. I had expected a first 6, as you guys heard from yesterday's episode, or whenever that was a few days ago, that the first 6 rounds should be very close, and they were, indeed. If you just judge off the first 6 rounds, forget about the knockdown in the 6th, it was an even fight. And then the rest of the way, you would Taylor would pull ahead, which is exactly what happened. In the 6th round, Taylor lands a beautiful pull counter. So what happens is he pulls back a little bit and shoots his left hand, which is his power hand. Remember, Taylor's a southpaw. Short shot right on the chin of Ramirez, and he goes down. It was a beautiful shot, and I think that wasn't the shot that turned the fight around, but that was the one that turned the scorecard around. At that point, I had a 3 rounds apiece with a knockdown. Taylor had already started to secure the advantage after 6 rounds, which is approximately what I wanted to see and approximately what I thought we would see. In the 7th, though, is when the fight turned entirely in Taylor's favor. He lands a short, beautiful uppercut off the clinch, knocking Ramirez down. And that shot, I think, sapped the fight out of Ramirez. As Ramirez then did nothing for the next 4 rounds, gave them all away. He gave away the 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th round. With 2 knockdowns, the fight was already over. Taylor wound up coasting the last 2 rounds. I think he gave them away. I think Ramirez took them. And Ramirez did a great job at the end to recover and take those last 2 rounds. But I think Taylor knew he had already had it in the bag. He just swept those middle rounds, those latter half of the fight, early middle rounds. Late middle of rounds. So basically, Taylor winds up taking 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 with 2 knockdowns, and that's the fight, ladies and gentlemen. That's it. I had it at the end of the day. I had it 7 rounds to 5. I think I wound up giving him the 1st, the 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th, and the 2 knockdowns. So, like I said, the fight went exactly as I kind of expected. I was a little bit worried in the 7th that Taylor may actually put on the gas and get Ramirez out of there, which again would have netted us no money, would have lost money. But thankfully, Jose Ramirez was able to be slick enough and stay alive and have a good enough chin and heart and resilience to stay in the fight and not just get knocked out. Also, I said that his trainer, Robert Garcia, did a great job letting him know that you are not done yet. At one point, I think after it was in the 7th, after that devastating round, he tells Ramirez that you're not done yet. This fight's not over. You still have it. And he did. And while he did lose the next set of rounds, he was at least able to recover enough, like I said, to take the 11th and the 12th round. Now, let's talk about like the actual power shots. So I think it's evident that Taylor, while having respectable pop, doesn't really have that one-shot KO type of a power. He landed that first shot, he landed because he has a significantly better speed and just better boxing ability. It was a very beautiful pull counter. But if that was a true power puncher, that fight's probably over there. And in the second knockdown, this is the one that really hurt Ramirez. It was an uppercut that he didn't see coming and landed right dead on. It took him off his feet. So good, respectable power, but not that one-shot explosion that you would expect from a true power puncher. This, I think, may hurt Taylor going up, and if he goes up in weight, and when he goes up in weight. Again, we'll talk about this a little bit later. Now, let's talk about Jose Ramirez's power. Like I said, it wasn't quite there as well. He is a respectable puncher, but not an overwhelming one. He has to wear you out with body shots, and which he was landing well on Taylor. Taylor just had such superior conditioning that he didn't land enough to sap his energy. Taylor had plenty in the tank to sweep the first 4 or 5 rounds in the second half of the fight. Like I said, like we expected him to do. And also, guys, it's easy. It's easy. It's easier to pick just winners and losers. When I'm trying to make some money on a fight, I'm not trying to take like a 20%. Like you take a minus 400 or something where you have to bet 400 to win 100. Oh, cool, you make your 25% or whatever. But that's really, when we're betting, especially sports betting, we're not looking at these kind of odds. We're looking for the big money plays. At least I am. I don't know, maybe it's a little degenerate, just gambling degeneracy. But, with the decision, when you select a distinct outcome, a particular outcome, your returns are going to be bigger and better because, well, that's the way things are in the betting world. The more particular and the more specific your bet, the better the odds, of course. But, like I said, I don't want to brag too much. I'm happy if we all follow a similar betting strategy. We all made money this weekend. I don't know, go take your girl out or go do something nice with it. Maybe get yourself a spa day, get your nails cleaned. I don't know how many of you guys are working class guys. Always get gunk stuck in your nail from the week. Maybe some grout off your shoes. Go get yourself some laundry done. Whatever. But where does Taylor go from here? So Taylor is now the unified, undisputed, 140-pound, light welter, whatever you want to call him, super lightweight world champion. There is nobody else at 140 left for him. I know Prograis was talking on Twitter saying, I can't believe I lost this guy. I want a rematch. Prograis is a stationary guy. He's a counterpuncher himself. And when he lost to Taylor, it was close and competitive, but it was clear, I thought, in favor of Taylor. I don't know what Prograis does going forward against Taylor. He'd have to press the action. Significant, because Prograis is a real puncher, but he has to press the action. Does he get a rematch? I agree. The rematch is a great fight. I'd like to see it, but Taylor's not obligated to give that rematch. It wasn't that close that people are clamoring for a rematch. Prograis looked like he kind of just got outboxed in many stretches of the fight by a faster, better, more mobile boxer. Will things be different in a rematch? I don't know, but we know that they're both a little bit older now. That fight happened 2 years ago. Maybe that fight, who knows when the next time that fight happens. So where does Taylor go from here? Well, I think the most obvious play here, the most money-making play for Taylor, given that he just fought on ESPN, is to fight the previous undisputed, unified, undefeated 140-pound champion. Ta-da! Exactly, Crawford. Terrence Crawford, who is now fighting at 147. Not a big 147-pounder guy, but he's fighting on ESPN. He's fought nobody. We keep talking about it, but Crawford has literally fought nobody. He's no longer the pound-for-pound number one guy. Hell, I don't even think he's in the top 3 anymore. You have to do something. You can't live off your past glories forever. That's not the way the pound-for-pound list works. if I read you Terrence Crawford's resume since moving up to 147 pounds, here it is. Ready? Jeff Horn, Jose Benavidez Jr., that's actually a pretty decent win. Amir Khan in 2019. Kavlia Alsakis, who hurt him and actually really knocked him down. And Kell Brook in 2020. Does that sound like a pound-for-pound number one guy? That's the past 4 years of fighting since his last fight, 140 pounds. Since he beat Indongo. His resume is quite paltry, guys. And he is now going to be 34 years old. So if I am Bob Arum, I make this fight. The storyline's great. The undisputed 140-pound champion, current, fighting against the previous undisputed 140-pound champion at 147 on ESPN. Well, that to me sounds like a great fight to make. And I think if you are Josh Taylor, that is the money fight for you to make. Because where else do you go? You can take the rematch with Prograis. But why? You've already beaten him. Who else is there? Zapata, you're not going to fight him. Why? Posto? Pedraza? Robert Easter Jr.? No. There's nobody left at 140. The division's clean. Outside of Prograis, and who you've technically already beat. So the division is cleaned out indefinitely for you. Unless again, we're hearing word that Gervonta Davis is moving up. But let's see how he handles 140. He's not a big guy. Let's see how he handles 140 pounds. So 147, I think, is where you have to go. That is one of the premier divisions in boxing right now. And that can be your entrance into the division. That fight. And that would be for pound glory. You beat Terrence Crawford, you're pound for pound probably you're top 3. There would be an argument made for you to be pound for pound number 1. Because the assumption here is Prograis is going to start cleaning out the 140-pound division. While you have beaten the previous pound for pound king, who is still undefeated. I like this fight. I like this fight. You're also catching Terrence Crawford on his way down a little bit. Like I said, if you're an astute watcher of the game, and you understand history a little bit, you know that fighters do not get better in their mid-30s. They don't get quicker. They don't get stronger. They don't get better in their mid-30s. Especially in these lower weight classes, you peak in your late 20s, early 30s. Terrence Crawford is now going to be 34 years, if this fight gets negotiated. By the time it's done, he's 34 years old. You're still 32. You're still a young cat. You still have you're actually 30, not even 32. You still have your prime in you. And Terrence is a good puncher, but he's also susceptible on the defense. You know, one of his attributes is he's mean, he's kind of fast, but he'll be a little bit slower. You're actually taller. He has a fight going up. Terrence Crawford is 5'8". You're 5'10". You're the bigger guy. I like this fight for you. I'm not saying Josh Taylor wins. But I'm saying it's a good fight. And hell, if Terrence Crawford is the pound-for-pound number 1 best talent on the planet, then he'll have no problem beating anyone. And there's no shame in losing to him, especially if you put up a competitive fight. You know, you fought power punches. You've taken punches from guys who can hit. Prograis. You know, you just fought, obviously, Ramirez. So, I think you could, you can go up and you can try and make this fight. Trust me, Crawford needs anybody. Anybody. And speaking of Crawford and the 147-pounders, we just heard the biggest news of the weekend in terms of fights. We have an insane, by the way, fight news weekend. Earl Spence is going to be fighting Manny Pacquiao. Talk about a spit in the face to Terrence Crawford. Crawford, who was rumored to fight Pacquiao 4 or 5 months ago. Crawford, who was negotiated his ass out of a Spence fight, is now negotiated himself into sitting around and doing nothing while Spence fights the second biggest name in boxing over the past 20 years in Manny Pacquiao. Spence is about to become a giant boxing star, a household name where if he beats Pacquiao. You continue to get older. So you need to fight. You need to fight somebody, anybody, Terrence. Please, you're like us more hardcore fans have been sitting here telling people, no, bro, this guy's one of the best pound for pound fighters. He's up there, and he's fighting nobody. I can't even get anyone excited. At the gym, there was a Lithuanian guy. He was really excited when Crawford fought Koliakakis, but not because he gets to watch Crawford fight, but because he got to go and watch Koliakakis fight. Nobody knows who Crawford is. And at this rate, Crawford his career is already sapped. Like, people don't want to admit this, but he's already sapped the earning potential on his career by having such a paltry 4 or 5 years. Since 2017, he's kind of done nothing. It's going to be 2022 soon. 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. That's nearly 6 years. Since he was 28 years old. Those are your prime years. Unfortunately, I believe Terrence Crawford, we will never see how good Terrence Crawford could have been. Because at this point, even the best version of Terrence Crawford is going to be a little bit worse than the guy who, had he had that same fight against an A-level guy 3 years ago, would have been an even better version. We'll never see that version of Terrence Crawford. Roy Jones wound up getting James Toney and Bernard Hopkins and a slew of other good fighters. People say, like, oh, Roy Jones' resume is kind of weak, but he's got 2 Hall of Famers on it. Terrence Crawford's got nobody. Well, he's got 3, but Felix Strand doesn't count because it's so late. I'm talking about prime. Terrence Crawford has nobody. That Cal Brook fight? Come on. Cal Brook had his jaw broken by Golovkin 5 years ago. This is not the same Cal Brook. Amir Khan in 2019. Maybe if you beat Amir Khan in 2009, that's a win. In 2019... that's an afterthought. Benavidez, like I said, that's a good pickup. I like Benavidez. I think he's a pretty good fighter. But he hasn't done anything since that fight. It's been 3 years, about to be 4 years soon. Since that fight. It's a long time. Benavidez could have went to school and graduated. So, if you're Terrence Crawford and you know Spence just signed to Pacquiao, you need any fight you can get. Forget about being pound for pound. People will forget about you in general. They're like, Terrence who? He was in that Bro Science video, right? And speaking about pound for pound, let's talk Manny Pacquiao for a second. Can you imagine if this guy at 42 years old is fighting Earl Spence? Unbelievable. This is unbelievable. He already has the best resume in boxing going back God knows how many decades in terms of how many Hall of Famers he beat. He has like a throwback, like 1940s, 1950s resume in terms of like the amount of Hall of Famers on that list. Were he to win this fight, his legend would be practically unmatchable. He would be one of the 5 greatest fighters of all time. He would be in the conversation, unironically, as one of the greatest fighters of all time. But, of course, some of you are saying, but he lost to Floyd Mayweather, and I think he would have lost to Floyd Mayweather at every point of his career. Losing to a fight does not necessarily make you a lesser fighter. You can be a guy who loses a fight, but still be a greater fighter. Because any one fight does not entirely define a career. I think even at this stage, Manny Pacquiao is the greater fighter compared to Floyd Mayweather. Not the better fighter, not the fighter who would win, as we saw he won't, but the greater fighter. A fighter who consistently fought better opposition, beating better opposition throughout his entire career. Let's be frank, Floyd Mayweather, he leaves a lot to be desired for when he fought some of these fighters. When did he fight Sugar Shane Mosley? Huh? When Mosley was already many times defeated, when he was nowhere near his prime. Same thing could be said for Manny Pacquiao. He fought him in 2015 when the fight should have happened in 2010, 2009. As a matter of fact, they first signed in 2009. He beat Canelo when Canelo was 23, still green. Andre Berto, he beat a Berto in 2015, not the Berto in 2009. When it comes to Floyd Mayweather, he has a very good resume. That's not a questionable thing. But there are fighters that he never fought. There are fighters that he fought too late. He doesn't have the same resume that does Manny Pacquiao, and I don't think that's controversial. I think most people, most fans will agree. He fought Oscar De La Hoya, but the Oscar De La Hoya of 2007 is not the Oscar De La Hoya of 2003, 2002. He crushed it too. He never fought him at 140. Oh, he's saying, well, Costa lost at that time. But let's be frank. It's not the reason why he didn't fight Costa too. And there's nothing wrong with taking fights when they're supposed to be taken. That's part of the whole game. Like I said, it's prize fighting, baby. Prize fighting. You maximize your earning potential. That's the most important thing in boxing. But when we, as more hardcore fans, are trying to analyze for the archives, for record keeping, we're looking at more than just who made more money or whatnot. Fighting Juan Manuel Marquez at 147 is not like fighting Juan Manuel Marquez at 130, 135. And I think everyone damn well understands that. There's nothing wrong with beating Marquez at 147, but it's not that you going around saying, I beat Marquez. Well, imagine Marquez went up to heavyweight and Joshua beat him. Would anyone consider that a legit win? No. Now, of course, things get a little blurry when it's at 147, but if you know boxing, you know Marquez is a small guy. Marquez fights at 100. He fought as low as 122 pounds. That's not 147 pounder. He looked tiny at 140. So, again, Mayweather can be the better fighter compared to Pacquiao, but he is not the greater fighter. And if Pacquiao somehow wins and beats Earl Spence, the behemoth, I really think Pacquiao is in that conversation for the greatest ever. His resume would be unbelievable. How many Hall of Famers is that? How many top guys? How many O's will he have taken? It's quite miraculous, actually. Quite a legendary figure. So that's that. I think if you're Josh Taylor and if you're Terrence Crawford, you're begging Bob Arum to make that fight. I said the storyline sells itself. The two undisputed guys at 140 have a chance to fight at 147. It sells itself, undefeated. This is the pound for pound glory at stake for both guys, really. So that's what I would do. Now let's talk about the heavyweight situation, because this one is always evolving and always interesting. Tyson Fury was, of course, at the fight. He was supporting Mr. Taylor. And we're hearing news that Usyk is indeed going to exercise his right to fight Joshua. And I think this is the right time for Usyk. Again, we can have the Fury-Joshua fight fall apart entirely. This is dangerous. So looks like what we're getting, which is great for us fans, is Fury-Wilder 3, which is not as easy of a fight to predict as some of you guys think, and Usyk-Joshua, which I actually think may be an easier fight to predict than the other one. See, everyone's thinking, Usyk is going to outbox Joshua, and Fury is just going to completely wipe the floor with Wilder. I actually think it's a lot more complicated than that. Now, again, we will be talking about these fights as we go forward, as they get closer, as they become official, really official. But here's the thing. Usyk is undersized at heavyweight. He's also underpowered. We've now seen it through 2 fights. This is not the same guy that fought at cruiser. He's just not. I don't know how many fights we need to see Usyk get black and blues and look just not there at heavyweight before you realize that this is just weight classes exist for a reason. And you think Joshua's so easy to outbox, but Joshua that came in for Ruiz 2 looked completely different than Joshua that came in for Ruiz 1. A thinner Joshua who'll stay on his feet, box from the outside with a deadly right hand against an undersized Usyk. I don't know what you guys are thinking Usyk is going to do here necessarily. Now, of course, everyone says, Joshua has the suspect chin. But it's heavyweight. Everyone's got a suspect chin. Yeah, he got clipped by Vladimir Klitschko. Vladimir Klitschko has insane power in a straight right hand. Yes, he went down to Ruiz, but he went down with like a lot of side hits. Usyk throws straight up. He throws straight up, and his punches do not have the same pop. He catches you like similar to Taylor. He'll catch you with shots you don't see coming, and those are the shots that are going to hurt. Or shots that you can't time, those are the shots that are going to hurt. But I don't think it's so easy as, Usyk's going to come in there and just outbox Joshua. It's not particularly easy to do. Even the boxers who tried, like Parker, had some limited success, but they couldn't do it at all. Like, that fight was marginally competitive, I thought, with Joshua and Parker. Marginally meaning that Parker wasn't embarrassed, but it wasn't a close fight. I didn't think so. So, I think this fight is quite clearly favored towards Joshua. If two guys are going to box, and sure, Usyk is going to be faster. He's going to be significantly smaller, though, and with a huge power disparity. Both are kind of guys that throw straight shots. So whose shot gets there first type of a deal, but I don't think Usyk has that power. You know, I checked online. Box.live has Joshua at a -250 and Usyk at a +200. And that sounds about right because I really think that's where it's at for Usyk. I think he may survive, but I don't really see. Like, again, I have to rewatch the fights of both guys, the more recent ones. I have to really sit down and think about it, but off the top of my head, I wouldn't pick Usyk to win this fight. So some of these people are saying this is going to be an easy kind of fight for Usyk. I think you're out of your mind. And conversely, like I said before, the Wilder-Fury fight, guys, did you forget that Wilder nearly slept Fury twice in that first fight with one shot? Forget about what happened in the second fight for a second. Yes, that's important. But if a fighter knows he can sleep you with one shot, he'll keep. That's the same reason why Wilder was so pissed the second fight got stopped. When you have supreme confidence, and that confidence has not wavered for Wilder, I guarantee you, he's going to try and take Fury's head off. He only needs to land one time. And I guarantee you this time, in this second fight, Wilder will absolutely not. He won't be. This fight will not be stopped unless Wilder's unconscious. Let me just put it that way. Wilder will fight till the bitter end. He's a power puncher, one of the best heavyweight power punchers in the past few decades. He doesn't want to just lose by having a corner stop it. He will forever believe he can win a fight by knockout, and because he's proven he can. He was able to carry his power into the 12th round. I think people are selling him really short. I'm looking right now online, and I'm seeing odds of +250 for Wilder. That means if you take Wilder by KO, you're probably getting upwards of like +300, +350, maybe +400. I'll see what the actual odds are going to be. But that's significant. Like, that's a significant underdog. I think this is a way closer fight than that. +250. Fury would have lost that first fight had it been a different ref. I like Fury, but let's be frank here. That's a different ref. He loses that fight. He gets knocked out on the 12th. He gets counted out. That's it. There's no Undertaker kind of WWE style opening. So, again, what can happen here is there can be an entire derailment of the fight. It's dangerous to take these kind of tune-up fights. These aren't tune-up fights. Obviously, they didn't have a choice. But everyone waiting for this absolutely monstrous, and I am waiting for it, monstrous Joshua Fury fight may not get it. Because, like I said, upsets can happen. What if Usyk really does just box Joshua's ears off? What if Wilder goes and knocks Fury out in the opening stanza, or just throughout any point in the fight, as he showed that he could? You're going to have what, Usyk versus Wilder? You probably actually at that point have a Fury Wilder 4. That's what you have. If Wilder wins this fight, you're not getting Joshua Fury. You're getting Wilder Fury 4 for millions of dollars. No, it won't be as big as Joshua Fury. It won't be for all the belts. You know, if Joshua will continue to fight off mandatories. That's another problem. It's hard to maintain your undisputed championship. You have 4 bodies that consistently tell you have to fight a mandatory. Difficult stuff. These things are very time-specific in boxing, very temporal. You know, undisputed champs exist in a small period in boxing history. They exist for a second, then they don't. because it's impossible to hold all the belts together. Eventually, some sanctioning body will strip it, create a regular super diamond elevated, Ubermensch champion or whatever bullshit they're creating nowadays. Regular, double regular and recess champion. I mean, all sorts of champions. But right now, like I said, thankfully at 140, we kind of have an idea who's the undisputed, unquestionable champ with Josh Taylor. And if we ever do get our Fury-Joshua fight, the winner of that fight will be undisputed, assuming both guys win their next fights. So, like I said, if we followed similar betting strategies, we made some money this fight. Congratulations to everybody. Hope we all do some nice stuff with it. Like I said, go out, get your wife something nice, go get yourself a spa day. All right, that's going to do it for me. I'll see you on a Thursday. It's over.
I'm gonna go home and break my wife's hip.
Don't brag about taking my side piece. Don't brag about taking my side piece, though.
I broke my back. Back is broken. Spinal.
He's strong man, good boy. Just